Welcome to Value Plays Only, where Smothering Tithe is just to help pay for Ristic Study. Today, we have John, playing Vivi Ornitier. This deck looks to storm off with Curiosity style effects, winning with Underworld Breach. His hand contains a Valley Flood Caller, Windfall, Gataxian Probe, an Offer You Can't Refuse, Force of Will, Arid Mesa, and Mountain. Dan is playing Najeela, the Blade Blossom. This 5-color good stuff pile is packed full of wins. In addition to Najeela's specific combos like Derevian Grim Hireling, it can win with Thassa's Oracle or Underworld Breach. His hand contains a Mystic Remora, an Offer You Can't Refuse, Gemstone Caverns, Arid Mesa, Bloodstained Mire, and Windswept Heath. Cammy is playing Tasigur, the Golden Fang. This evolution list looks to ladder Tasigur into massive threats. It plays several infinite mana combos with Tasigur and Thassa's Oracle. Her hand contains Ristic Study, Demonic Tutor, Soul Ring, Polluted Delta, and Breeding Pool. Her London mulligans are Kin Bonded Prodigy and Orcish Bowmasters. Last we have Tyler, playing Marneus Calgar. This Esper value pile is chock-a-block full of token generators that Marneus turns into card advantage. It can win with Thassa's Oracle or Hullbreaker Horde Loops. His hand contains Grand Abolisher, Imperial Seal, Chain of Vapor, Swan Song, Chrome Mox, City Traders, and Morphic Pool. And with that, let's see some value plays. Dan has a pregame action, putting Gemstone Caverns onto the battlefield, exiling Snap. John plays an Arid Mesa for turn. He pays a life and cracks it, fetching up a Volcanic Island. John pays 2 life to cast Gataxian Probe, targeting Dan. He holds priority and casts an Offer You Can't Refuse, targeting Gataxian Probe. The table scratches their heads a bit at what his hand could possibly be. Offer counters Get Probe, and John makes 2 treasures. He then passes the turn. Dan plays Arid Mesa for turn. Looking to copy John, he pays a life and cracks it, fetching up a Volcanic Island. Dan casts Mystic Remora. It resolves and Dan passes. Cammy plays a Polluted Delta for turn. She pays a life and cracks it, fetching up an Underground Sea. She eyes the fish and decides to cast Soul Ring. Remora triggers and Dan draws. Soul Ring resolves and Cammy passes the turn. Tyler plays a Windswept Heath for turn. He pays a life and cracks it, fetching up a Scrubland. He casts an Imperial Seal. Remora triggers and Dan draws. Tyler searches up a card at the top of his library and loses 2 life. Tyler then casts Chrome Mox. Remora triggers and Dan draws. Tyler imprints Grand Abolisher under Chrome Mox and passes the turn. John untaps and plays Great Furnace for turn. He casts Ristic Study. Remora triggers and Dan draws. Dan responds with a Red Elemental Blast, targeting Ristic. John responds with a Force of Will, paying a life and exiling Valley Flood Caller as an alternate cost. Remora triggers and Dan draws. Force counters REB and Ristic resolves. With that, John passes. Dan untaps and in his upkeep he pays for Remora. Dan plays a Mana Confluence as land for turn. He takes 1 to cast Orcish Bowmasters. Ristic triggers and John draws. Bowmaster resolves and pings John for 1. With that, Dan passes. Cammy untaps and plays Breeding Pool for turn. Into play untapped, paying 2 life. Cammy casts Ristic Study. Ristic and Mystic both trigger. Dan draws for Remora, and then John draws for Ristic. Bowmaster triggers to ping John for 1. John is starting to worry about the growing threat of Bowmasters on the current board. Ristic Study then resolves. Cammy casts Imperial Seal. Ristic and Mystic trigger. Dan draws, and then John draws for Ristic. Bowmaster triggers to ping John for 1. Cammy passes the turn. Tyler untaps and plays a Morphic Pool for turn. Not wanting to be left out of the fun, he casts the card he tutored, Ristic Study. Ristic, Mystic, and Ristic trigger. Cammy draws, Bowmaster triggers to ping John, Dan draws, then John draws and Bowmaster pings him for 1. With that, Ristic resolves. Tyler passes his turn. John untaps and plays Scalding Tarn for turn. He pays a life and cracks it, fetching up a Steam Vents, into play untapped, paying 2 life. John goes into the tank here. Casting VV is now pretty meaningless, as any spell can just kill off with Bowmasters, and no creatures are viable right now either. John just passes the turn. Dan untaps and pays for Remora in his upkeep. Dan casts Summoner's Pact. 3 Ristics trigger. Everyone draws, and Bowmasters triggers 3 times to ping John 3 times. Summoner's Pact resolves for an Elvish Spirit Guide. Dan exiles Elvish Spirit Guide from his hand to tap out to cast, you guessed it, Ristic Study. 3 Ristics trigger. Everyone draws, Bowmaster triggers 3 times to ping John for 3. Dan passes the turn. Cammy untaps and casts Mana Vault. 3 Ristics and Mystic trigger. Dan draws 2, John draws 1 and takes 1 from Bowmaster, Tyler draws 1 and John takes another 1 from Bowmaster. Cammy delves 2 cards from her grave to cast her commander, Tasigur, the Golden Fang. 3 Ristics trigger. Cammy pays for Dan's Ristic. John and Tyler draw, and John takes 2 from Bowmaster. Cammy passes the turn. Tyler untaps and plays Ancient Tomb for turn. He casts a card that's just for some value, which is Smothering Tithe. 3 Ristics and Mystic trigger. Cammy draws, and Dan pings Tyler for 1. John breathes some fresh air with a new lease on life. Dan draws 2, and then John draws, and Bowmaster pings Tyler. Dan responds to Tithe with a Force of Will, paying a life and exiling Mystical Tutor as an alternate cost. 3 Ristic trigger. Cammy draws, Tyler takes 1, John draws, Tyler takes 1, and with Tyler's draw trigger still on the stack, John responds with a Fairy Mastermind, hoping to get 1 draw from it. 3 Ristics trigger. Cammy draws, and Tyler takes one from Bowmaster. Dan draws, and then Tyler draws and takes one from Bowmaster. Fairy Mastermind then resolves. Tyler's Ristic Trigger resolves, and he draws. It is at this point that John realizes his Mastermind already caused Tyler to draw his second card, and this is his third. Bowmaster triggers and wipes Fairy Mastermind off the board before it has a chance to do anything meaningful. Tyler then responds to Force of Will with a Swan Song. 3 Ristics and Mystic Trigger. Cammy draws, and Tyler takes one from Bowmaster. Dan draws 2, and John draws. Tyler takes one from Bowmaster. John passes priority again, and Dan goes into the tank. He decides this is worth fighting over and pays 2 life to cast a Metal Misstep on Swan Song. 3 Ristics trigger. Cammy draws, and Dan pings John for 1 with Bowmaster. John draws, and Dan pings Tyler for 1. Tyler then draws and takes 1 from Bowmaster. With all that, Misstep counters Swan Song, and Force of Will counters Smothering Tide. With the stack empty and everyone out of mana and cards, Tyler passes the turn, discarding the hand size. John untaps and plays his Training Center for turn. He shows Dan a Windfall. He asks if Dan would kill him with Bowmasters or if they can work together. Dan tells him he would definitely kill him, and John reconsiders his line. John casts Mystic Remora, 3 Ristics and Mystic Trigger. Tyler draws, and Dan pings Tasigur for 1. Cammy draws, and Tasigur takes 1 more from Bowmaster. Dan draws 2, and Mystic Remora resolves. John casts Dragon's Rage Channeler, 3 Ristics trigger. Tyler draws, and Dan pings Tasigur for 1. Cammy declines her draw. Dan draws 1. With that, John discards down to hand size and passes the turn. Dan untaps, and in his upkeep he pays for a Summoner's Pact trigger. He lets his reward die. Dan plays Flooded Strand for turn. He pays a life and cracks it, fetching up a tropical island. Dan goes to combat and swings his 26/26 Orc army at John. John blocks with Dragon's Rage Channeler, and it dies. Dan discards down hand size and passes. Cammy untaps, and in her draw step she takes 1 from Mana Vault. She then plays Gaia's Cradle for turn. She casts some Orcish Bowmasters. The table can taste their salvation, as 3 Ristic triggers go on the stack. Dan draws, then John draws, and Bowmaster pings Cammy for 1. Tyler draws, and Bowmaster pings Cammy for 1 more. Cammy's Bowmaster resolves and enters, targeting Dan's Bowmaster. In response, John casts Mog's Salvage for free, targeting Cammy's Soul Ring, hoping to clear the board of all Bowmasters, if even just for a moment. 3 Ristics trigger. Dan draws, and Cammy's Bowmaster targets Dan's Bowmaster again for good measure. Tyler draws, and both Bowmasters trigger. Cammy pings Dan, and Dan pings Cammy, not wanting to let John and Tyler out from under the Bowmaster lock. Cammy draws, and Dan's Bowmaster pings her for 1 more. Cammy now floats 2 from Soul Ring, and then Mog's Salvage resolves, destroying it. Her final Bowmaster trigger then fizzles. Cammy casts the One Ring. Ristic, Ristic, Mystic, and Ristic trigger. Dan draws, Bowmaster pings Dan, John draws 2, Cammy pings Dan twice with Bowmaster, then Tyler draws, and Cammy pings Tyler with Bowmaster. The One Ring then resolves, and Cammy gains protection from everything. Cammy then casts Banishing Knack, targeting Tasigur. Ristic, Ristic, Mystic, and Ristic trigger. Dan draws, and Bowmaster pings Dan. John draws 1, and Cammy pings Dan with Bowmaster. Cammy pays for John's Ristic. Tyler draws, and Cammy pings Dan with Bowmaster. Banishing Knack resolves. Cammy taps Tasigur to its new ability to return Dan's massive Orc army to his hand. Cammy discards down to hand size and passes the turn. Tyler untaps, and in his upkeep, Cammy taps her ring to draw a card. Tyler plays a Command Tower for turn. He casts a Clever Impersonator, 3 Ristics trigger. Cammy draws, Dan draws, Cammy pings him for 1, John draws, and then Cammy pings Dan for 1. Impersonator resolves as a copy of the One Ring. Tyler gains protection from everything. Tyler then casts a Mox Opal, 3 Ristics and Mystic trigger. Cammy draws, Dan draws, Cammy pings him for 1, John draws 2, Cammy pings Dan twice with Bowmaster, then Mox Opal resolves. Tyler taps his One Ring to draw a card. Bowmaster triggers to ping Dan for 1. Tyler then casts Gilded Drake, 3 Ristics trigger. Cammy draws, Dan draws, Cammy pings him for 1, John draws, and Cammy pings him for 1. Gilded Drake resolves and exchanges control with Orcish Bowmasters. Happy with the dent that he made in the board, Tyler passes his turn. In his end step, John casts March of Swirling Mists, exiling Displacer Kitten as an additional cost, targeting Bowmasters and Tasigur to phase out. 3 Ristics trigger. Dan draws, and Tyler's Bowmaster triggers to ping John. Cammy draws, and Tyler pings John for another 1. Tyler then draws. Dan responds with an Offer You Can't Refuse on March. 3 Ristics and Mystic trigger. Cammy draws, Bowmaster triggers to ping John. John draws 2, Bowmaster triggers twice to ping him for 2. Then Tyler draws. John responds with a Metal Misstep. 3 Ristics trigger. Cammy draws, and John pings 1. Dan draws, and John pings 1. Tyler draws. Dan casts Pact of Negation on Misstep. 3 Ristics and Mystic trigger. Cammy draws, and John takes 1. John draws 2, and then takes 2 pings. Tyler draws a card. John responds with his own Pact of Negation, 3 Ristics trigger. Cammy draws, and John takes 1. Dan draws, and John takes 1. Tyler draws a card. Cammy responds with her own Pact of Negation, 3 Ristics and Mystic trigger. Dan draws, and John takes 1 from Bowmaster. John eyes his life total and decides to only take one of his draws. Bowmaster pings him for 1. Tyler then draws. With that, Cammy's pact counters John's pact, Dan's pact counters Misstep, and Offer finally resolves, countering March's Swirling Miss. John makes 2 triggers. Tyler finally discards down to hand size, and the turn moves to John. John untaps and lets his Remore die. John then goes into the tank. At 3 life, he can't cast many spells. He tells Cammy that if she declines some of her draws, he'll cast Windfall to try and get into a Flash Enabler and the One Ring. If he doesn't have protection, John can't cast any spells or try to interact with Tyler on his turn. Since Cammy and Dan are both going to tap out for Pact, no one's going to be able to interact for Tyler's next turn. Cammy agrees to let John try, since she has protection. John casts Lion's Eye Diamond. 3 Mystics trigger. Tyler draws, and Cammy declines her draw. Dan draws, Bowmaster pings John for 1. LED resolves. John plays an island for turn. He casts Windfall. 3 Mystics trigger, and John holds priority and cracks his Lion's Eye Diamond, discarding his hand and adding 3 blue mana. Tyler draws. Cammy declines her draw, and Dan draws. Bowmaster pings John for 1. Tyler responds with a Force of Will, paying a life and exiling Mystical Tutor as an alternate cost. This is the end for John. 3 Mystics trigger, Cammy takes her draw as John is dead already. Bowmaster deals the last damage to John, then John dies and his trigger and spells are removed from the stack. Dan draws and Bowmaster pings him for 1. With that, Force of Will fizzles, and the turn moves to Dan. Dan untaps, and in his upkeep, he pays for his Pact and Negation trigger. He plays a Bayou for turn. Dan casts Lotus Petal, 2 Rystix trigger. Tyler and Cammy draw, Bowmaster triggers to ping Dan for 1. Dan casts a Tinderwall, 2 Rystix trigger. Tyler and Cammy draw, Bowmaster triggers to ping Dan for 1. Tinderwall resolves. He sacrifices Tinderwall for 2 red mana, spending 1 for a Mana Vault, 2 Rystix trigger. Tyler and Cammy draw, Bowmaster triggers to ping Dan for 1. Dan taps Mana Vault and spends his floating red for his commander, Najeela, the Blade Blossom. 2 Rystix trigger. Tyler and Cammy draw, Bowmaster triggers to ping Dan for 1. With that, Dan passes the turn. Cammy untaps, and in her upkeep, she has a Pact trigger and a One Ring trigger. She takes 1 from the One Ring. In response to her Pact trigger, Cammy taps the One Ring to draw 2 cards. Bowmaster triggers twice, targeting Najeela. Dan responds with a Deflecting Swat, targeting one of the Bowmaster abilities. 2 Rystix trigger. Tyler and Cammy draw. Bowmaster triggers to ping Najeela for 1. Swallow resolves, changing one of the Bowmasters to ping itself. Bowmaster dies, and then the last trigger resolves, killing Najeela. Cammy then pays for her Pact trigger. In her draw step, she takes 1 for Mana Vault. Cammy plays an Overgrown Tomb for turn, untapped, paying 2 life. Cammy casts a Dark Ritual, 2 Rystix trigger, and Dan and Tyler draw. Cammy casts a Demonic Tutor, 2 Rystix trigger, and Dan and Tyler draw. Tyler responds with a Commandeer, exiling Into the Floodmaw and Time Twister as an alternate cost. 2 Rystix trigger, and Dan and Cammy draw. Commandeer resolves, gaining control of Demonic Tutor. Demonic Tutor resolves, and Tyler searches a card to-hand and shuffles his library. Cammy then somehow keeps going, casting Sacrifice, sacrificing Tasigur as an additional cost. 2 Rystix trigger, and Dan and Tyler draw. Tyler responds with a Mental Misstep, paying 2 life. 2 Rystix trigger, and Dan and Cammy draw. Cammy then responds with her own Mental Misstep. 2 Rystix trigger, and Dan and Tyler draw. Mental resolves, countering Tyler's Mental Misstep. Tyler then responds to Sacrifice with a Mindbreak Trap, targeting Sacrifice. 2 Rystix trigger, and Dan and Cammy draw. Mindbreak Trap resolves, exiling Sacrifice. With that, Cammy's finally out of pushes and has to pass the turn. Tyler untaps, and in his upkeep, he takes 1 from his One Ring trigger. Still in his upkeep, Dan casts Silence. Defiant in the face of the 23-23 Orc army, Dan is deciding to draw the ire of Tyler anyway. 2 Rystix trigger. Tyler responds by tapping the One Ring and drawing 2. In response to a Rystix trigger, Cammy casts Noxious Revival, targeting Pact and Negation in her grave. 2 Rystix trigger. And Dan and Tyler draw. Tyler responds with Born Upon a Wind. 2 Rystix trigger. Dan and Cammy draw. Born resolves, and Tyler draws a card. In response to the stack, Tyler casts Thassa's Oracle. 2 Rystix trigger, and Dan and Cammy draw. Thassa's Oracle enters and triggers. In response, Tyler casts Demonic Consultation. 2 Rystix trigger. Cammy draws, and Tyler pays for Dan's Rystix. Demonic Consultation resolves, and Tyler names You Are Already Dead. He exiles his entire library, and then Thassa's Oracle ETB resolves, and with no library, Tyler wins the game. So, what did we learn here today? Rystix Study is cool and all, but Orcish Bowmaster can really strangle out a game. If you have any tips for the video, leave them below. Until next time, keep making value plays. Alright then, you convinced me, Rystix Study.
Cool.
So we burned all that, and there's another one coming. I'll pass.
All right.
Yeah. Hey, coast is clear, brother. Why can't you hold a Rystix?
No.
This game sucks.
Send it.
Mystic.
I heard Rystix a good
Rystix,
card.
Mystic.
Pass.
Alright, Cammy.
True. Every time someone casts a spell, John takes 2.
This is the start of the rest of our time together today.
Yeah.
Game's gonna last 50 years.
And I'm gonna cast a Ristic.
Ristic.
No, I'm not gonna pass.
Ristic, Mystic. Wow. It's a really good card.
I'm gonna.
So is Dan's 30-30.
Yeah, I wish I could deal with this. If I could deal with this at any turn of the game, I'd be dealing with it.
So let me have some fucking mana so I can do
I
it.
pass priority.
I'm going to. The moment John casts a spell.
I'm gonna cast 100 cards.
Yeah, and John.
He says that.
Do what you're gonna do. I don't care about
John,
you.
I know John means it. I'm willing to take this.
Dan, I'm not doing anything on my turn.
You've been saying this whole time you're casting 1,000,000 cards.
That's crazy.
And I know you probably have Snap or something. You're just like, first thing, get rid of the Bowmaster. Next thing, Vivi. Yeah, I know you're gonna do it.
So his Bowmaster will also kill yours. They'll both die.
I don't know if I want to do that. I think I want a Bowmaster.
Oh, that's awesome. Well then, great. Then this is gonna be awesome. Okay, Ristic. There's a Ristic. 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 You draw. March.
I wouldn't do this.
Displacer Kitten. I will target Bowmaster and Tasigur.
Right.
No, if he packs, I'll let it resolve.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Is like
I can't wait to make him pay out.
Exactly.
Alright, then do the other one.
I don't give 2 fucks. Mantle on offer. Pack the offer.
Okay, we got him.
Here we go. Round the board.
Alright, Cammy, you draw.
This is gonna be a fun one to edit, John.
Alright. Do you want to pick me?
Yep.
We should have let your pact resolve, and then you packed his thing. Dang. That's how we should have done it.
Can I,
Finally, after 45 turns, the Bowmaster goes away to a SWAT.
After killing one player and dealing
It has to be
40,
Has to be
more
like
than 40
60 damage
yeah.
this game.
My God.
almost can't, right?
I kind of have to.
I say you almost can't.
What do you mean?
Kind of got to. Damn, beep, the semi-truck's coming. It's gonna run you over.
Playing for a draw.
Beep. I don't know what you're thinking is the outcome of that, but it's you dead. It's you in a body bag.
Dead either way.
Well, but
Super.
great, we're here.
Take that. Silence. Silence.
I'm going on top of that. I'll cast a Born Upon a Win.
Oh, great.
Oh boy.
That solves a lot of your problems.
That's his Oracle. Console.
You win, yay!
Actually, I could have paid for Cammy's too. I had this floating.
Yay!
Yeah, wow.